you know, there's a lot of stuff that you can buy for the Steam Deck. But should this be one of those things? All right, so I'm going to cut right to the chase here. This is an external fan for the Steam Deck by the folks over at EasySMX. It's a rechargeable fan that is meant to be placed on the top of your Steam Deck, and yeah, just turn it on and you're off to the races. The idea is that this thing just sits right on top of that Steam Deck exhaust vent and just helps push more hot air than what could be done just by the Steam Deck by itself. And assuming it works, this allows you to then keep your Steam Deck at cooler temperatures and possibly see performance boosts, maybe? Look, I'll be honest, I accepted this thing from EasySMX primarily because I wanted to see if it was BS or not. It makes me think of those like cheap Xbox 360 fans back in the day that you would think actually helped cool your Xbox, but in reality, it just made things worse because, shocker, the Xbox wasn't designed with those fans in mind, and it actually ended up affecting the cooling system negatively. So yeah, we're going to take a look at this with 3 different games and just see how things go and see if we get cooler temperatures and maybe a performance boost in frame rate. I don't know. We'll see. Oh, but before we get into that, I should mention that this has 3 different fan speeds, low, medium, and high. We're only going to test the low and the high settings for the gameplay stuff. But I'm going to go ahead and quickly jump into an audio test before we do the gameplay stuff, just so you can get an idea of how these fans sound and get an idea of how loud they might be. All right, so kicking things off, we have Kingdom Come Deliverance. This is a game that typically runs pretty warm on my Steam Deck, especially when set to the very high settings like it is now. As you can see, I'm just sort of riding the horse through the forest here, not very elegantly, I might add, but you can see that the temperatures for both the GPU and the CPU are kind of hovering right around that 80 degrees Celsius mark. Now, this isn't super scientific or anything, but consistently what I'm seeing here without that external fan, 80 degrees seems to be kind of that average sweet spot that it's hovering around. It might dip down to as low as maybe 77 at times, or go as high as I think I've seen 84 degrees during testing for either. And yeah, that 80 degrees, 81, kind of right around there seems to be pretty consistent without the fan. All right, so now we have the game at the same settings, but we have the fan set to its lowest setting and still just riding around the same general wooded area. And you can see that while it's not a huge improvement, we do see a little bit of a dip in the overall temperatures. We still kind of creep pretty close to that 80 degrees once in a while for the GPU and the CPU, but by and large, we're kind of more so hovering maybe a few degrees lower on average. So, you know what, it does seem to be at least kind of expelling that hot air a little bit more. As far as frame rate though, yeah, we're not really seeing any noticeable difference. The frame rate's kind of all over the place, especially when the graphic settings are set this high. And while it might seem that on average the frame rate might be a couple frames higher, I don't think that's something I would confidently say that is as a result of the fan. It is seeming to keep the system cool, but yeah, the frame rate's about the same. Now we have the fan set to its highest setting, again, kind of riding around the same general area in the woods. And yeah, the temperature seems to have decreased again, even just by a few more degrees than last time. Now it seems to really be hovering around that sort of 73 degree mark, maybe 72, 71, give or take, and it just kind of hovers right around there. Again, we see sort of, you know, little bits of peaks and dips around that, but consistently it seems to really hover around anywhere between 70 to 72 degrees for either the GPU or CPU. So, I mean, almost a 10 degree difference on average, it seems, using the external fan, which honestly, I was not expecting this to work at all. So for me, I'm pretty impressed with those results. Once again, like I said before, the frame rate doesn't really seem to be affected by this, and I didn't really expect any sort of performance increase on that end of things. But yeah, no, I'm impressed that the temperature has gone down like it has. So the next game I wanted to try out was another game that kind of really just kicks on my Steam Deck fan a lot of times when I'm playing. That's PGA Tour 2K23. Now with this game, the frame rate is going to be all over the place. I think that's just more of an optimization thing. But yeah, let's take a look at the temperatures right now without the fan. Kind of similar to what we saw with Kingdom Come Deliverance. It's just kind of right around that 80-degree mark. For the GPU, it seems to be kind of hovering more around that 78, 79 more frequently, where the CPU seems to be kind of hovering closer to that 80-degree mark. But yeah, this is kind of what we're looking at in terms of without any sort of external help from the fan. And yeah, it's very similar to what we saw with Kingdom Come Deliverance. And now moving over to the low setting of the fan, just like we saw with the previous game, we see a difference of a few degrees. And yeah, it's pretty consistent as far as temperature control is concerned. Again, frame rate still all over the place. At this point of the testing, I'm not expecting any sort of improvement frame rate wise due to the fan, but it is keeping things cooler. And just like we saw with the highest setting before, again, it's keeping it almost 10 degrees cooler at times with both the CPU and the GPU. That highest setting on the fan really seems to do a decent job of expelling more hot air from the Steam Deck. And yeah, we can see the results right here where the difference is noticeable. Again, frame rate, no difference really there. It's sporadic all over the board, no real noticeable improvement, but the temperatures have improved. And lastly, we have Cyberpunk 2077 set to the Steam Deck preset, but with the frame rate unlocked. Honestly, I don't really need to go through this game. It's basically the same results as we got with the previous two games. However, I didn't think I would be doing my due diligence if I didn't at least cover Cyberpunk 2077 in this test. As we can see, just like the other two games with the fan off, it's kind of creeping around that 80-degree mark in both the GPU and CPU. This one seems to be dipping a little bit more than some of the other games down to, 77, 78. But again, that sort of 80-degree, 79-degree threshold is kind of the average area where we're kind of sitting around without the fan. Hopefully by now you're starting to see a pattern here. With the fan set to its lowest setting, yeah, we see a decrease in a couple degrees on the overall average temperatures. And then if we just cut to our recording of the highest setting from the fan, yeah, again, kind of, now hovering around that 70, 71 degree mark, when before we were getting anywhere from 79 to 81 degrees. Almost 10 degrees dropping again, and occasionally during testing I saw it drop as low as 68 degrees at some points. So it is doing its job of expelling that hot air from the Steam Deck. And while we didn't see any sort of improvement in the frame rate side of things, we can easily say that the fan is doing something with keeping the Steam Deck consistently cooler. It just comes down to whether or not you're cool with the noise from the fan. All right, so this thing, turns out it actually kind of works as advertised. I'm impressed and surprised. But the big question is, should you buy something like this? And honestly, I don't know. Look, maybe I'm just missing the point of something like this and why you might want to get one for yourself. To its credit, the fan does work. I mean, everything from low to high settings, we did see a pretty steady decrease in overall temperatures, especially with those high settings on the fans almost being like a 10-degree difference from what it was without the fan. So yeah, it works. I just can't think of a scenario on why you would want to get something like this. I don't know, maybe if you're docking this a lot to your TV or something and you just want a way to keep your Steam Deck better ventilated, or maybe you live in a hotter climate. I don't know. I can't really think of any real reason. Let me know in the comments down below if I'm totally off base with this, if this does serve a real solid purpose. It works. I just don't think I can really recommend it. I think you can use your money elsewhere. But yeah, that about does it for this one, everyone. Thank you as always for watching the video and checking out the channel. If you like this type of Steam Deck accessory content, let us know by hitting that like or dislike button. It really helps us kind of navigate what stuff we should make going forward. If you do want to see more Steam Deck related content and you don't want to wait, we do have a playlist made of all the different Steam Deck content that we have made so far called All About Steam Deck. I'll leave it somewhere in a card here or in the description down below. If you want to check that out, feel free to do so. But yeah, that's enough rambling out of me. Thank you again so much for watching. My name is Blake, and for all things tech, games, to really anything nerdy in between, be sure and subscribe to EasySMX. Have a good one, everyone. We'll see you next time. Yeah, I just don't see it.